Thank you. Well, it's great to be here. I'm going to start with a packet of spaghetti. This is my prop. The reason why I brought a packet of spaghetti, I want to tell you a story. Before lockdown, we were running a cookery club. I'll tell you more about those in a moment. For families in deprived areas. And they were making Italian meatballs, homemade Italian meatballs with vegetables. And they were going to take this home for their teas. And we were giving out packets of dry spaghetti. And the person who was leading the group was about to say, it's really easy. If you've never cooked this before, just look at the back of the packet. 10 to 12 minutes it'll tell you in boiling water, and you've cooked your spaghetti. And she just pauses and thinks, actually no, I'll go around and say that individually to each one person. She came to one mum who said, I've never cooked spaghetti because I can't read. I used to be a governor of a primary school in Bramley. 98% of the families were white British heritage. We estimated that 60% of the parents had a reading age of less than a 10-year-old. That's in Leeds. When you deal with deprivation, it's a multifaceted problem. The solutions, the best solutions, are always the simple ones, but you're going to need a number. So for instance, that simply, you've got to teach them how to cook, how to budget, and how to read. So Flourishing Families, what do? Well, we do what it says on the tin. We help families to flourish. We exist to bring down barriers which prevent families in Leeds from flourishing. There are 180,000 people in this city who live in deprivation, 40,000 kids below the poverty line. Their average, those children, their average life expectancy is up to 12 years shorter than kids growing up in North Leeds. And one of the reasons is food poverty and poor diet. Food poverty, a lack of basic cookery skills, little understanding of how to afford a nutritious diet. So families resort to cheap, high-fat, high-sugar alternatives. The City Council here estimate that in 20 years' time, if we can't crack the childhood obesity problem, which is the most significant problem now in our deprived areas, their social care budget will go bankrupt. It's that big, the problem. So what do? Well, we run cookery clubs, so that's one of the things we do, but it's not the only thing we do. We take on that challenge, and we get both in person and online now. We get families together to cook together. We get the kids doing it with the parents, because if they prepare it, they'll eat it. It's as simple as that. And they do, and their diets change. Every one of our families, and that's typically 100 families a week doing cookery with us, regularly repeat the recipes. So we are changing their diets one meal at a time. It's simple, but it works. But that's not all we do. We also take on the challenge of low literacy through family reading clubs, where the parents can come with the kids, not even have to admit that they can't read, but they can learn to read. We take on the challenges of low expectation for these children through mentoring programs. We improve their financial literacy by bringing in budgeting into those mentoring programs. We overcome social isolation by running language cafes and English language classes. We welcome parents into our wellbeing support groups, and we coordinate the whole lot so we can work with individual families to meet their needs. So that's what we do. And back in March 2020, if I look back, just before lockdown, just like you guys were having one of these, we had about 42 projects running each year with about 550 people directly benefiting every year. We've grown, we're 3 years old, we've grown very fast from a small fledgling charity that got their first grant from these guys to run a pilot cookery club in Bramley, just to try out an idea, and it worked. 142 people came to that cookery club, and the cookery clubs were born. Now they're our largest project. So we were working with these people, and then lockdown hit. Within 24 hours, we had to change. Agility was the name of the game. We changed. All our projects had stopped, and we were now feeding families. Families who were getting free school meals were getting vouchers, £15 a week per child. Somebody in Whitehall had the great idea that they were going to email these vouchers to individual families. Most of these families are on email. You know, how they ever thought that that was working, and it didn't work. And it took between 6 and 8 weeks for these families to get these vouchers. We ended up working with schools to get them to print the vouchers, then take the vouchers to families. We helped 3 schools set up food banks. we were feeding 100 families a week with food parcels, with recipe cards, with ingredients bags for different main meals. We had mums, I had a mum, I was one of the volunteers living in Leeds, I had a mum burst into tears when I arrived because she'd not been able to feed her kids for 3 days. This is in Bramley in Leeds. So that's what was happening. And then in September last year, we changed again. Agility was the name of the game. So we went online, our cookery clubs went online. We were doing door-to-door deliveries of the ingredients, the recipe cards. We set up a YouTube channel to do demonstrations so they could cook. And again, we had over 100 families cooking every week with us. And gradually, bit by bit, we were continuing to beat food poverty. We put our storytellers online because these kids were falling behind at school. They had no way of accessing the schoolwork. So we put storytellers online. We were delivering education packs as well. So that's a quick insight into what we do. But let me just finish by kind of like taking the bonnet off the car and giving you a glimpse of the engine inside of how Flourishing Families runs. The engine of Flourishing Families, the passionate vision of the staff, the determination of the volunteers, the creativity, the ideas, the ways we think of simple solutions, all the hard work, none of it would run, and forgive me the pun in the fuel crisis, without petrol in the engine. It wouldn't run. And this is where these guys, LCF, have come in. They were the first to support, as I said, our fledgling cookery club. Just an idea. They took a risk with this little charity, one person working 2 days a week, a handful of volunteers, and about £20,000 income. They took a risk with us and let us run a cookery club, paid for it, and it took off. Then we worked for 2 years through the Fairhurst Fund to develop the financial literacy running alongside our mentoring. And then when lockdown hit, and this really impacted us, within a week of lockdown hitting, the phone goes. And it's John McGee, one of the trustees of Leeds Community Foundation. And he's phoned for a chat to find out how we're doing. And he says, you're one of the charities that we need to make sure survives to help rebuild Leeds after this pandemic. What do you need? How can you keep on going? How can you keep on feeding your families? How can you prevent your staff from going on furlough as your volunteers go down, the number of volunteers go down? And before we knew it, we had a £10,000 resilience grant, which kept us going and kept families from going hungry. And now we're working with these guys on a 2-year programme, a strategic programme, because they want what we want. We want to grow to be a city-wide charity. We started in Bramley, we're now working over in Seacroft, in Halton Moor, in Beeston as well, but we want to be a city-wide charity because there are 200,000 people living in deprivation. But I wanted to finish with this. It's an opportunity to say thank you. Thank you to all of you who support Leeds Community Foundation, and thank you to Leeds Community Foundation. I was coming over here and I was thinking, what is the thing that I like about LCF more than anything else? Now, the funding, the partnership and all this, they're great. But what I really like is that you guys get it. You get it. You get what the needs are in our city. You get what we do, why we do it, and why it works. You get it. And when you work with somebody who gets it, you can really partner with them and you can really make a difference. So thank you for getting it.